Hi everyone. Now, let's move on to topic 4 of Unit 2, cyber attacks and vulnerabilities. In the digital world, no system is completely safe. Hackers and malicious users often try to exploit weaknesses in systems to gain unauthorized access or cause damage. This brings us to two important concepts in cybersecurity: cyber attacks and vulnerabilities. A cyber attack is any attempt to damage, steal, or gain unauthorized access to computer systems, networks, or data. For example, a phishing attack where fake emails trick users into giving away passwords is a common type of cyber attack. A vulnerability, on the other hand, is a weakness or flaw in a system that attackers can exploit. Vulnerabilities may exist due to poor coding, weak passwords, outdated software, or misconfigured settings. For instance, if a company does not update its operating system with the latest security patches, attackers can use that vulnerability to hack into the system. Cyber attacks come in many forms, such as phishing attacks, tricking users into revealing sensitive information; malware attacks, spreading viruses, worms, or ransomware; denial of service (DDoS) attacks, flooding a server with traffic to make it unavailable; SQL injection, injecting malicious queries into databases through insecure input fields. We can broadly classify cyber attacks into two types: active attacks, where the attacker tries to alter, damage, or steal information. Example, modifying data in a database; passive attacks, where the attacker only observes or monitors without making changes. Example, eavesdropping on network traffic. Another important concept is the zero-day vulnerability, which is a flaw unknown to the software vendor. Since no patch exists yet, attackers can exploit it before security teams find a fix, making it very dangerous. In short, cyber attacks are the actions carried out by attackers, while vulnerabilities are the weaknesses that make these attacks possible. Organizations must constantly update systems, patch vulnerabilities, and educate users to reduce the risk of attacks. To help you focus your study, here are some sample questions you might encounter. 2-mark questions. Define a cyber attack. What is a vulnerability in cybersecurity? Give one example of a cyber attack. Give one example of a system vulnerability. Name any two classifications of cyber attacks. 10-mark questions. Explain different types of cyber attacks with examples. Discuss the role of vulnerabilities in enabling cyber attacks. Explain the relationship between threats, vulnerabilities, and exploits. Write a short note on passive versus active cyber attacks. Explain how zero-day vulnerabilities are exploited. A cyber attack is a deliberate attempt by an individual or group to exploit computer systems, networks, or technology-driven organizations in order to cause harm or gain unauthorized access. It usually involves the use of malicious code or techniques that compromise the three main pillars of information security: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The goal of a cyber attack may vary depending on the attacker's intent. For example, some attacks are designed to steal sensitive data like credit card details or login credentials, while others aim to modify or destroy information, such as ransomware attacks that encrypt files and demand payment. Cyber attacks can also target availability by shutting down services through methods like distributed denial of service (DDoS) attacks, which overwhelm a server with traffic until it crashes. For instance, when hackers take down a bank's website to prevent customers from accessing their accounts, that is a cyber attack focused on disrupting services. A vulnerability, on the other hand, is a weakness or flaw in a system's design, implementation, or configuration that can be taken advantage of by attackers. These vulnerabilities act like open doors or cracks in the wall that cyber attackers look for and exploit. Common examples include unpatched software, where security updates have not been applied, making systems exposed to known threats. Weak passwords are another vulnerability because they can be easily guessed or cracked, giving attackers direct access. Misconfigured firewalls may allow unauthorized traffic into a network, and outdated encryption protocols may fail to protect sensitive communication. For example, if a company continues to use an old version of SSL for securing its website, attackers can intercept and read confidential data like user login credentials. Therefore, vulnerabilities are the opportunities, and cyber attacks are the actions that exploit those opportunities to cause damage. In cybersecurity, it is important to understand the relationship between threats, vulnerabilities, and exploits because they form the foundation of how attacks happen. A threat refers to any potential cause of harm to a system or network. For example, malware is a threat because it has the potential to damage data or disrupt services. A vulnerability is a weakness or flaw in a system that can be taken advantage of by attackers. For instance, using an outdated operating system or having weak passwords creates vulnerabilities that make a system easier to attack. An exploit is the actual method, technique, or piece of code that attackers use to take advantage of a vulnerability. For example, a hacker may use a specific script to exploit an unpatched software bug in order to gain unauthorized access. The relationship between these three elements can be understood as follows. When a threat encounters a vulnerability, there is a potential risk to the system. However, the risk becomes a real attack only when an exploit is applied to that vulnerability. For instance, if ransomware threat targets a system with unpatched security flaws, vulnerability, and the attacker uses malicious code to break in exploit, the system is compromised. In simple terms, a threat is the danger, a vulnerability is the weak spot, and an exploit is the weapon used to attack the weak spot. This relationship helps security professionals understand why patching vulnerabilities, strengthening defenses, and monitoring threats are essential to protecting systems. A cyber attack can be classified in different ways, depending on the intent of the attacker and the type of target being attacked. Understanding this classification helps students see how cyber attacks work in the real world and why different defense mechanisms are needed. Based on intent, attacks are generally divided into passive and active. Passive attacks are those in which the attacker does not interfere with a system's operations, but only observes and collects information. The main goal is eavesdropping or gathering intelligence without being detected. For example, in packet sniffing, an attacker monitors data packets traveling across a network to steal information such as login credentials. Similarly, traffic analysis can reveal communication patterns even if the messages are encrypted. On the other hand, active attacks involve directly altering or disrupting the system's resources or operations. These attacks are more harmful because they change data or services. For example, malware injection can corrupt files, while website defacement alters the appearance or functionality of a website, often to spread propaganda or damage the organization's reputation. Based on target, cyber attacks can be classified into network attacks, host-based attacks, and application-level attacks. Network attacks focus on communication channels and data transfer processes. For example, a denial of service (DDoS) attack overwhelms a server with excessive requests, making it unavailable to legitimate users. A man-in-the-middle (MITM) attack intercepts communication between two parties to steal or modify data. Host-based attacks target the operating system or software installed on a particular machine. A common example is a buffer overflow attack, where an attacker sends more data than a program can handle, forcing it to crash or execute malicious code. Finally, application-level attacks exploit weaknesses in software applications. For instance, in SQL injection, an attacker inserts malicious SQL queries into an application's input fields to access or manipulate the database. In summary, cyber attacks can be understood by looking at the attacker's intention, whether they want to spy silently or disrupt activities, and by identifying what they are targeting, such as the network, the host system, or specific applications. This classification not only makes it easier to study cybersecurity, but also helps organizations design proper defense strategies. Cyber attacks are carried out using different methods, each with a specific purpose and target. One of the most common methods is phishing, where attackers create fake emails or websites that look legitimate to trick people into sharing sensitive information like passwords or credit card numbers. For example, you might receive an email that looks like it is from your bank, asking you to verify your account details. But in reality, the link takes you to a malicious website. Another common method is the man-in-the-middle (MITM) attack, where the attacker secretly intercepts communication between two parties. Imagine you are logging into a Wi-Fi hotspot at a cafe, and an attacker positions themselves between your device and the internet. They can read or even alter the messages being exchanged. A denial of service, DDoS, attack works differently. Here, attackers flood a system, server, or network with fake requests, making it so busy that it cannot serve legitimate users. For example, if thousands of fake requests are sent to a shopping website at once, real customers will be unable to access it. Another serious type of attack is ransomware, where attackers lock or encrypt files on your computer and demand payment to unlock them. For instance, the WannaCry ransomware spread globally, forcing hospitals and businesses to pay money in exchange for access to their own data. Similarly, SQL injection targets databases through insecure applications. If a login form on a website does not properly validate input, attackers can enter malicious commands that allow them to bypass security and directly access or steal sensitive data from the database. Apart from these, there are also zero-day vulnerabilities, which are flaws in software that developers are not yet aware of, and therefore no patches or fixes are available. These are extremely dangerous because attackers can exploit them before the software vendor has a chance to release a solution. A famous example is the Stuxnet worm, which exploited multiple unknown flaws in Windows systems to sabotage Iran's nuclear program. To prevent such cyber attacks, several security measures should be followed. Regular patching and updates ensure that known vulnerabilities are fixed before attackers can use them. Strong authentication methods, such as two-factor authentication, make it harder for attackers to gain unauthorized access. Network segmentation can limit the damage in case of a breach by isolating critical systems. Intrusion detection systems, IDS, help in identifying suspicious activity within the network at an early stage. Finally, security awareness training is essential because many attacks succeed due to human error, such as clicking on a phishing email. Educating users to recognize threats can significantly reduce risks. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe.